Hi. So in this video, we'll look at pelvic stability and the deep front line. And the deep front line is this fascial line from kind of the jaw down through the neck, through the center of the body, down encompasses the diaphragm, the pelvic floor, and all the way down to the feet. And working with the deep front line can really help us regulate. It's wonderful. The movements are simple, but we can use them for a lifetime, really. Even though they're simple, as we practice them and get familiar with them, they can have a big impact on our system. So we'll look at the deep front line and connect that to pelvic stability. So let's go ahead and get started. We will start on our backs. So you notice here I have 2 blocks. So 2 blocks will be helpful for the practice. And when you're ready, we'll go ahead and lie down. Just thinking. Let me just adjust this a little bit. I'm not a pro videoer yet. We'll say yet. Yeah, go ahead and get comfortable. We'll have take the legs long if that's comfortable, and let the arms rest to the sides. And let the attention settle inwards. And there's this idea of the muscle tonus. And the muscle tonus is the tone of the muscles at rest. And when we practice regularly, we can start to feel almost like a map of the body. Where in the body is the tone of the muscles at rest greater, we'll say more tense, with more tension, and where in the body does it feel easy to feel the earth and soften. And so we can do this by just feeling the way that the body is resting on the ground and the points of contact. And we can go kind of systematically through the body, feeling the heels and how the right and the left heel might feel a little different touching. They might lay differently on the ground. And we can feel the backs of the legs, and we might even notice a difference between the right and the left. And we can feel the back of the pelvis, and one side of the pelvis might be have more pressure downward into the ground. And we can feel the lift of the low back, and again, one side might have more space under it than the other. And the back of the heart and the rib cage, the shoulders, the shoulder heads may or may not be touching the ground. And the length of the arms, so just noticing how the right hand touches the ground, the knuckles or the fingers, and how the left hand rests on the ground. And most important is really allowing this time of witnessing to be without concern, right? Without judgment. It's this way that yoga brings us to what they say the highest form of intelligence, right? Is this direct perception. So practicing that. All is welcome, right? Anything in the body shakes or sensations, or sometimes there's little pulses or twitches or big breaths or short breaths. All of it is just information. And finally, just notice how the back of the head is resting on the ground. Feel the breath in the belly, and it can be soft or it can be a little bigger. It's whatever's natural. And then bring feet to the floor, about hip distance apart, if not maybe a little bit wider. And notice even when you bring feet to the floor, how it changes, automatically kind of changes the tilt of the pelvis. And then we'll begin with some just really small kind of pelvic tilts. So pressing the low back towards the ground, lifting the tailbone maybe an inch or two, and then releasing. And we'll just continue at your own pace, tilting the pelvis back. And releasing. You might exhale when you tilt the pelvis. And here we're moving slow and letting the actions be really small so that the brain can really map the movement, right? So when we move fast or we push past, it's like we kind of skip over parts that we could be kind of integrating. And also noticing, right? So the awareness and the listening, the paying attention. Nothing is unimportant, right? Nothing, no sensations, whether it's in the pelvis or in the neck or feet, legs, right? And then we'll notice, as we're tilting the pelvis, which foot presses a little bit more. And it can change day to day. Sometimes we have this kind of pattern where it's always the same. Sometimes it switches. So just play into maybe which foot feels like it's pressing a little bit more and accentuate that. So press, and you'll notice that press then will lift that side of the pelvis. And when you release, just release. So when you tilt, press a little more through one foot, and then when you release, you just release. Notice how that extra press through one foot changes the pressure cross-laterally across the body. And then go ahead and let yourself just soften, release the legs long. We'll just take a breath or two here. Just once again, kind of feeling points of contact, or maybe even already you're feeling a more general sense of the back body on the earth. And then bring feet back to the floor, again about hip distance apart, maybe even a little bit wider. And go ahead and start to tilt the pelvis, this time pressing a little bit more with the other foot. and see where you feel the movement. So really relax the rest of the body, and it'll be like the most subtle little movements, but as you're pressing and tilting, you might even feel the head start to lean a little bit to one side. You might notice what feels easy, and I know this sounds really silly, but also what feels difficult. Like when you're pressing, is the mind trying to make sense of something? Is it bored? Is it hard to pay attention? Is there some kind of like place that's hard to feel? Just notice even the subtlest little bits of kind of like struggle, and just see if you can soften that. And just let it be what it is. Okay, and then go ahead and relax that. Let's go both sides. So pelvic tilt and relax. And then take the legs long and rest for a moment there. And then feet back to the floor, hip distance apart. And this time we're going to start to roll up. So we'll explore this kind of rolling the pelvis, tilting the pelvis just like you did. Only this time you're going to see if you can find that, like where the sacrum ends and the first vertebra is. See if you can tilt to that point. And it might be a guess, but you just kind of try to feel and then relax that. And come back to the first vertebra, and you might even see if you can kind of in your mind feel what might be the second vertebra. And release. And then you can go at your own pace, but we're going to go vertebra by vertebra. So maybe you find first, and then second, and then third. All sensations are to be observed, right? Even the most subtle that seem kind of like, they don't matter. You don't have to make sense with them with the mind. You don't have to have a story for why there might all of a sudden be a shaking, even though this seems real easy. Right? You just allow and witness as you come, trying to come one little vertebra at a time. And when you find the fifth vertebra, I'm going to pause there so the hips will be a little bit elevated. And then we're going to push a little bit more into that kind of the first side, so the foot that felt a little stronger. And you'll feel that side of the pelvis might lift a little. Does it lift? Can you feel more pressure over into the opposite side, maybe even up into the shoulder? And then go ahead and roll all the way back down, vertebra by vertebra. And then we'll come back up and press again through that same side. So a little stronger through that one foot. pressure and where it might go in the back. Maybe we feel the opposite shoulder being a little bit more flush down towards the ground. And rolling all the way back down. And let's go to the other side. So when you roll up, you'll roll up one little vertebra at a time and press into the opposite foot. And maybe you feel a little more pressure cross laterally, so it could be opposite ribs, opposite shoulder. Sometimes we can even feel that opposite shoulder more flush or pressing, more pressure down into the ground. And one little vertebra at a time, come all the way back down. I'll go one more time to that side. Notice I'm going real slow. That's probably, can barely see almost what I'm doing. But again, this type of work is best done for your body to interpret what I'm saying and you to follow. Reducing any unnecessary effort. So it's just a little press through that second side, a little tilt of the pelvis, rolling up the spine, sensing what you feel cross laterally. And then coming all the way back down. Taking your time. Letting your brain make sense of this really subtle movement, and then take legs long and rest. Just briefly feel back body on earth. Sometimes we can feel a little bit more of the shoulders on the ground here. The low back might feel maybe more even, who knows? And sense the hands, how the hands are resting. The heels. And then we'll bring feet back to the ground. About hip distance apart, tilt the pelvis, roll up the vertebra. This rolling up the vertebra in itself can be just so helpful if we really have the patience and take our time to be articulate about it, right? I really believe that the more we take our yoga practice into these kind of subtle spaces, the more we really kind of have this agency over healing and health and well-being. So we'll come up maybe about mid-back, lifting the pelvis to what's easy, right? So we're not forcing the pelvis and lifting the pelvis, but we're coming. And mid-back is, just a reference, but it can be lower, it could be higher, just depends on what you feel is easy here. And then we'll take hands to the pelvis, and we're going to translate the pelvis over towards the left. The knees will stay mostly where they are, and each side of the pelvis is going to remain kind of facing up towards the sky. So one side won't dip down more than another, and that's why the hands are there, so we can feel each side of the pelvis is even up towards the sky. And then go ahead and let yourself return. And we'll do that same thing to the same side. So over towards the left. Notice what happens in the left side of the chest, the left neck. Does it feel more spacious? Just what's easy. No unnecessary effort. And back to center. And again, over towards the left. See what you can soften here and still explore. And come back to center. And then roll down the spine. And release and rest. So if you feel shaking in the movements, this is oftentimes what we say, the nervous system finding its way. So we actually appreciate shaking. Right? Shaking is kind of this, can sometimes be a release, right? The nervous system releasing kind of long held stuff. So if you're shaking, welcome it. See if you can be with it. Tidal waves of breath too, same thing. Right? It's kind of the nervous system finding a new level of being able to exist in a muscle tonus that's a little softer. Right? Let's tilt the pelvis, roll up the spine. Once again, come to a place that feels easy, lifting the pelvis. And bring the hands back to the pelvis so we can feel right side and left side stays pretty equidistant to the floor. Knees stay kind of in the same place, but we'll translate the pelvis over towards the right. And if you run into big sensations, you might just let that be where you stop, right? So there's no forcing. Let yourself come back to center and moving again over towards the right, just to the place that's easy. So we're letting the mind feel really comfortable. I mean, comfort is a relative term, right? But we're not going to the point of pain. We're not trying to push past anything. We're just feeling what happens to the right side of the chest, the right side of the neck as we allow the pelvis to go over towards the right. And then you might start to translate to both sides. So you might go left and right. Watching what happens in the chest, the sides of the chest, the sides of the neck. It's subtle. And then let yourself come back center, roll down the spine, finding maybe each vertebra. And releasing and resting. Legs and sense back body. And then we'll draw the knees into the chest and give a hug. Maybe give a little rock side to side. And maybe a little rock forward and back. If it feels okay to rock along the spine, you could. And we'll come on to all fours. Yeah. And we'll allow ourselves to come into a little bit of cat-cow, starting from the tailbone. So we can let the tailbone kind of point up towards the sky. Let it gently come up the back into the crown of the head. And then we'll let ourselves come the other way. So tailbone comes down, belly kind of hollows upwards. And at the very end, after pushing the shoulder blades wide, the chin might come in towards the chest. And we can Move gently, thoroughly between those two. So coordinating the movements kind of intentionally. Yeah, that's great. And then let's go ahead and tuck toes and lift the knees just an inch or two here. And you might give a little tap to one side and then a little tap to the other. And let yourself kind of give this little tap side to side. And then we can rock a little forward and back. And then let's go up and back into downward facing dog. Yeah. And you might kind of find the sit bones even here and see if drawing the sit bones, getting into the habit of having some connection between the sit bones. So for many people, that connection might have really strong muscle tonus, we'll say, right? So tension between the sit bones. And for some of us, it's really easy to kind of splay, open up. And in that case, right, the belly would drop, and you'll have really easy kind of tilting the pelvis up and back. And I'm kind of demonstrating a little bit of what that looks like, right? And what we want actually is to find a little stability, right? So that might mean drawing the tailbone down a little, hugging the sit bones in, firming the legs, and pressing through the hands. So sometimes downward dog is taught like this kind of heart down towards the ground, kind of hollow back, but that doesn't really serve us in our sthira sukha, right? Steadiness and ease. So it's through the steadiness. So we have to find the engagement, right? Draw the low belly up. And downward dog starts to feel a little bit more like an upside down V, as opposed to sometimes how it's taught with this kind of hollow back. Lines of energy, yeah. And then let's go ahead and come down onto the knees. And we're going to step the right foot forward between the hands. And this is where blocks might be really helpful. If you don't have blocks at home, you could do this without blocks, and I'll give a demonstration on how to do that. And so low lunge, right? Low lunge sometimes is taught with this kind of letting the pelvis come forward, and we get this big stretch along the front. And if we're thinking about a continuum of flexibility versus strength, sometimes we're moving into the flexibility without any support. And when we have trouble, when we're having pain, particularly in the sacral area, learning a low lunge with infinite support, right? That's what we want to find, is how are we cultivating the support in it, right? So here you can see I'm probably at end range of my flexibility at this point in the day. If I draw back, right, I'm coming out of the flexibility a bit and I'm cultivating a little bit more of the strength of things, right? And so if I come up onto the fingertips, if you don't have blocks, you could have hand on the thigh here. And you might already start to feel it takes a bit more lift up from the ground to be in this position. And this is why this position held for some time can help us start to feel a little bit more of kind of the innate work in it, right? I want you to take right thumb to the right hip crease and press the hip crease down so much so that the left side starts to pop out towards the side. And you might start to feel, because you're pressing down with that right thumb, the muscles start to engage and start to kind of almost push back into the right thumb to try to lift back up, right? So already, right, we'll call that muscle engagement. Keep the right thumb and that muscle engagement, but then hug the left side into, right? So the right side is going down, the left side of the hip is coming in, and we have this kind of sensation of the hips hugging in towards each other, the outer hips hugging in towards each other. Pull the front heel back and maybe take the arms overhead. And practice feeling the sit bones. So can we draw the very base of the pelvis? It's not strong, it's not rigid, it's not forced, but over time, can we start to feel the sit bones at the base of the pelvis having some connection in towards each other? Some connection in towards each other. And as I do that, I'll feel even more of a lift through the spine, right? So we're spending time in this posture, cultivating the strength of it. Once you find the strength, that's when we start to move a little bit more forward. But for you right now, just practice sit bones in towards each other, right hip down, left hip in, front heel pulls back. Yeah. And then let's go ahead and release. And we'll come into downward facing dog. Once again, little draw of the sit bones in towards each other. Firm legs, firm arms. Deep breaths. And then let's try the other side. So knees can come back down. We'll step left foot forward between the hands. And if blocks are the good position here, you can take blocks. I forgot to say that any part of this practice that you want to pause the video and just stay, like if it feels like a particularly helpful thing, always you're welcome to let these be kind of embodied meditations, right? Of just exploring sensation. It's like endlessly helpful. So when you come into low lunge, before we do any of the actions, sense how balanced you feel. Does it feel balanced, or does it feel like the body's kind of trying to find its way? Oftentimes when we have pelvic instability, a lot of these asymmetrical poses are going to be challenging for the brain to kind of map where things are, challenge for the brain to map where center line is and what's balanced. So that's what we're trying to find when we're cultivating the stability, is how do we draw everything in together and really support the body, deeper and deeper levels of it. So we'll take the left thumb and we'll guide the left hip down, and we'll play a little bit. Really guide it down, because this work can sometimes be kind of elusive. It's like, what in the world is she having me do? You just have to kind of trust. But push the pelvis right down, so much so that the right side pushes out to the side. Feel that. Try to relax the shoulders and the jaw. and the hands, right? Any unnecessary effort, and really just let it be in the wiggly wobbliness of the legs and let that happen, right? The response. Your legs are responding, and soon you'll feel, if you're not already, muscles start to have a little bit more tone in this front leg, right? Responding to that thumb pressing down. This work is called femurs descending, and it's important in a lot of our yoga practice for health and longevity in our yoga practice and in our bodies. And then, so find that work. Try to keep that work in the left side of the pelvis, but draw the right side in now, right? So the left side's still going down, the right side hugs in, and then draw the left heel back. And you might just keep your hands there for a moment to feel the body working and stable. And if you can hold it without the hands, you can take the arms up and overhead. Draw the sit bones in towards each other and maybe feel an extra lift up through the spine. I can relax the space between the shoulder heads and the neck. Let that space be soft, even though the shoulder blades are lifting. Can pull the foot back to come in a little bit deeper, only if you can really maintain that position of the pelvis. And then go ahead and release. Again, you could stay longer if that's feeling helpful. And then we'll come all the way up into downward facing dog once again, up and back. And then let's come back down onto the knees. And let's sit back, and we'll come back laying down onto the ground. And we're going to work into our dead bug posture. So coming all the way down, letting yourself just pause here for a moment. And then bringing knees over the hips and hands to the sky. Let the palms face each other and pull up just ever so slightly through the tailbone. So we don't want to necessarily press the low back down, but we want to have just a little kind of lift through the pelvis. And then bend the elbows and the fingers point towards the back of the room. And this movement too doesn't have to be big, right? It could be the smallest little movement of opposite arm, opposite leg, and then coming back. So a lot happens cross-laterally across the body that is kind of the body compensating for, sensations and experiences that we've had over time, whether it's pain in the abdomen, pain in the back, right? There's patterns that kind of get incorporated into the body from stress. And so letting the mind kind of remap kind of these fluid, equal movements, like teaching the body that it's safe, it can find comfort. Sometimes in this dead bug pose, there will be one part of the body that kind of starts to talk more than the other. Sometimes it's something in the abdomen, sometimes it can be in the low back. And we sit with that, right? Like if that sensation starts to come, a sensation starts to come and starts to kind of talk to us, we get to discern, right? Do I need to rest? Is the sensation asking me to rest? Do I keep going as a way of kind of like being with that sensation? The movements can be as big or as small as feels interesting to you. Bigger is definitely not better. Slow is optimal here. Shaking is welcome. And again, this could be, a 10-minute meditation. You could explore other movements within here, sometimes bringing hands together, feet apart, elbows together, feet together. Can be an interesting variation. And then take hands and feet to the sky. And draw the knees into the chest. We'll take one hand to each knee and give some kind of easy organic movements with the knees and the hands guiding the knees. You find ways to just kind of soften and then feet can come to the ground and we'll release all the way down to the ground. And rest. You can think about the practice being a homecoming, the intention of coming to practice and the actions that are required to come to practice as a homecoming. This kind of home base where actions are a little bit more deliberate. The mind might be a little bit more clear for discerning action, so that the life that we're living is a little bit more on purpose and directed by a deeper, more sincere part of ourselves. And that homecoming is somatic, right? It's of the body. And so you might just feel what home in the body might feel like for you. What is your place of refuge? And how do you nurture and nourish that? And you can stay in Shavasana, or if you're ready to move on with me, you can bring feet to the floor. And rock over to a side. And then pressing into the hands and coming up. And practice with the swish. Bring palms together at heart center. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings everywhere know love and know peace. Om Shanti, Om Peace. Namaste.